You stand on a cobblestone street, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke and damp earth. Overhead, the sky is a permanent gray, stained by countless factory chimneys that pierce the horizon. The year is 1850, and the Industrial Revolution is roaring. You hear the ceaseless clang of machinery, the rhythmic thud of power looms, and the distant, shrill whistle of a steam engine. This is not the quiet world of farms and fields you once knew. Instead, an entirely new way of life has emerged, powered by steam and sweat. For millions, the factory floor became their universe, a place of relentless toil, danger, and transformation. You are about to step inside, to experience the raw reality of working in a 19th century factory. Prepare yourself for the deafening noise, the endless hours, and the struggle for survival in a world forever changed. You push open the heavy wooden door, splintered and grimy, and step across the threshold. Instantly, the cacophony from outside intensifies, washing over you in a relentless wave. This is not the measured rhythm of hammers on an anvil, nor the cheerful chatter of a village market. This is a storm of noise, a monstrous symphony of industry that pounds at your eardrums and vibrates through the very soles of your worn boots. The air inside is thick, heavy with the metallic tang of hot oil, the cloying sweetness of raw cotton dust, and the ever-present acrid smell of coal smoke. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, and you can already feel it settling deep in your lungs. The light is dim, struggling to penetrate the grimy windows, many of which are painted over or choked with dirt. What daylight does get through is quickly swallowed by the cavernous space, leaving much of the factory floor in perpetual twilight, punctuated by flickering gas lamps that cast dancing, elongated shadows. You are inside a textile mill, one of the countless factories that have sprung up like monstrous mushrooms across the landscape. The very ground beneath your feet trembles with the power of the steam engine, a colossal iron heart throbbing somewhere deeper within the building. Its power is transmitted through an intricate web of leather belts and enormous iron shafts that crisscross the ceiling, turning 1,000 different gears, spindles, and looms. These belts are the factory's arteries, constantly moving, constantly threatening. You must be mindful of them always. A loose scarf, a stray strand of hair, a moment's inattention, and they can snatch you into their merciless embrace. Look around you. Row after row, stretching into the hazy distance, stand the machines. They are immense, intricate, and utterly relentless. There are the throbbing power looms, their shuttlecocks flying back and forth with terrifying speed, weaving thread into cloth. There are the spinning jennies, their many spindles blurring as they twist raw fibers into yarn. Each machine seems to have a hungry, demanding life of its own, asserting its dominance over the human figures who attend to it. The noise is the first thing that truly overwhelms you. It is a constant, grinding, clattering roar that drowns out all thought, all conversation, all quiet. You find yourself shouting to be heard by the person next to you, only to realize your voice is swallowed whole. Over time, your ears will grow accustomed to it, perhaps even numb, but the strain on your nerves will never truly subside. It is the sound of progress, yes, but also the sound of relentless, unforgiving toil. Your eyes begin to adjust to the gloom, and you start to discern the faces of those who work here. They are everywhere, moving with a practiced, almost robotic efficiency around their assigned machines. Men, women, and even children. Yes, children. You see them, small and nimble, crawling under running machinery to retrieve fallen bobbins or sweep away cotton waste. Their faces are smudged with grease and dust, their eyes wide with a mixture of fatigue and concentration. They are the cheapest labor, the most expendable, and often the most vulnerable. You are expected to take your place among them. Perhaps you are a tenter, responsible for overseeing a bank of spinning machines, ensuring the threads do not break. Or perhaps you are a piecer, tasked with mending broken threads as quickly as your fingers can fly. Whatever your role, it is defined by the machine you serve. Your pace is dictated by its rhythm, your movements by its demands. The work is repetitive, soul-crushingly so. Hour after hour, Day after day, week after week, you perform the same precise motions. Your hands become extensions of the machinery, your body a mere component in its vast mechanical system. There is little room for creativity, for thought, for individuality. The goal is output, efficiency, and profit. The factory bell, if you can hear it over the din, signals the start of the day. It rings before dawn, before the sun has even considered stirring in the sky. Your shift will last 12, sometimes 14, even 16 hours. There is no lunch break in the modern sense, merely brief intervals to snatch a morsel of food, often eaten standing, your eyes still scanning your machines. There are no holidays, save for perhaps Christmas Day, and Sunday is your only respite, a day to collapse into exhaustion before the grind begins anew. The heat is stifling, especially in the summer months. The steam engines generate immense warmth, and the crowded bodies of hundreds of workers contribute to the oppressive atmosphere. In the winter it might be cold and damp in places, but the lack of ventilation means the air is always stale, laden with fibers, dust, and the collective exhalations of the workforce. Your throat feels perpetually dry, and a cough begins to nag at your chest, a common ailment here known as mill fever. Safety? The concept is virtually non-existent. You see fingers missing, limbs mangled, eyes clouded with blindness. These are not rare occurrences. They are the unfortunate yet expected cost of production. There are no guards on the gears, no emergency stops easily accessible. If a machine snags a limb, another worker must run to find the foreman, who must then find the engineer to shut down the main drive shaft. Precious minutes tick by, minutes that can mean the difference between a serious injury and a fatal one. You must remain vigilant, constantly aware of your surroundings, not just for the machines but for the people. The foreman paces the aisles, a stern figure with an unyielding gaze. He carries a strap or a cane, and is quick to use it to rouse a sleepy child or punish a lagging adult. Fines are common for minor infractions: talking, singing, lateness, leaving your post for a moment too long. These fines eat away at your meager wages, further cementing your dependence on the factory. Children, sometimes as young as 5 or 6, toil alongside the adults. Their small hands are ideal for reaching into tight spaces or manipulating delicate threads. They are often given the most dangerous tasks, risking life and limb for pennies a day. You see them, slumped against the machinery during their brief breaks, their youth stolen by the demands of industry. Their schooling is minimal or non-existent, their future mapped out before them, a continuation of this very existence. Women are also a vital part of the factory workforce. They work long hours, often for less pay than men, and are expected to manage their households and families when their shift ends. Their bodies are pushed to the brink, their strength sapped by the constant exertion. The factory floor offers them an income, however small, but at an immense personal cost. As the day wears on, a profound weariness settles into your bones. It is not just physical fatigue. It is a mental exhaustion that dulls your senses and blurs the edges of reality. The rhythmic clatter of the machines becomes a hypnotic drone, threatening to lull you into a dangerous state of inattention. You fight it, knowing a moment's lapse could mean disaster. When the bell finally rings, signaling the end of your shift, it is a sound of immense relief, yet also one tinged with dread. You are free for a few short hours, but the thought of tomorrow, of returning to this very spot, hangs heavy in the air. You stumble out into the night, or perhaps into the dim light of a new dawn, your body aching, your senses assaulted. The world outside seems muted after the factory's roar, yet the smells and sounds of the mill linger, an invisible shroud around you. This is your life now. This is the Industrial Revolution, not as a grand concept, but as the raw, visceral reality of daily existence. You are a cog in the machine, a silent, hard-working part of a vast engine of change. Your body and spirit are tested, pushed to their limits, all for the sake of progress, for the production of goods that will transform the world, though perhaps not your own. The future is being built here, brick by brick, thread by thread, and by the sweat and sacrifice of countless individuals just like you. You are free, yes, but only for a moment. The factory never truly releases its hold. Even in your fitful sleep, the rhythm of its machinery might echo in your ears, a phantom vibration in your very bones. You feel the deep fatigue settling into your muscles, a heavy blanket that refuses to lift. But the night is short, impossibly short. Before the first hint of dawn can paint the sky, the piercing shriek of the factory whistle tears through the still air. It is a sound that drags you from your shallow slumber, a metallic claw reaching into your dreams, pulling you back to reality, to the relentless demands of the new day. You push yourself up, your body protesting with every movement. The cold seeps into your small room, a damp chill that seems to cling to your very bones no matter the season. There is no time for true warmth, no time for a substantial meal. Perhaps a piece of stale bread, a sip of lukewarm tea if you are fortunate enough to have them. Your stomach clenches with a familiar emptiness, a gnawing ache that will be your constant companion throughout the long hours ahead. You pull on your worn clothes, stiff with use and the grime of countless shifts. The fabric offers little comfort, merely a thin barrier against the elements. Your hands are already rough, calloused, and perhaps scarred, a testament to the work they have endured and will soon endure again. You step out into the pre-dawn gloom, joining the silent procession of figures moving through the narrow, cobbled streets. Their faces, like yours, are etched with weariness, their shoulders hunched against the morning chill and the weight of another day's coming labor. The air is thick with a pervasive smell of coal smoke, mingling with the faint, sweetish odor of industrial waste and damp earth. You pass rows of identical, soot-stained tenements, their windows dark, their inhabitants either still asleep or already making their own reluctant pilgrimage to various mills and workshops. The distant clang of an iron foundry, the rumble of a passing cart, these are the sounds that punctuate the quiet determination of the waking city. Ahead, the factory looms, a dark, imposing silhouette against the faint promise of sunrise. Its windows are numerous, staring out like vacant eyes, already hinting at the controlled chaos within. As you draw closer, the faint hum begins, a low thrumming that grows steadily louder, seeping into your chest, vibrating in your teeth. It is the sound of the machine's awakening, a monstrous chorus preparing to swallow you whole. You pass through the factory gates, a familiar heavy portal that seems to close behind you with an audible click, severing you from the outside world. The air inside is instantly different. It is warmer, heavier, thick with the scent of hot machine oil, damp cotton fibers and human perspiration. The floor beneath your worn boots vibrates continuously, a subtle tremor that courses up your legs and into your spine. This is the pulse of the factory, a constant, unrelenting beat. You make your way through dimly lit passages, the gaslights flickering weakly, casting long, dancing shadows. The noise grows exponentially with every step. The clatter and bang of looms, the high-pitched whine of spinning mules, the hiss of steam, the rhythmic thud of power presses, it all merges into a deafening roar. Conversation is impossible here. You learn to communicate through gestures, through quick, knowing glances, your voice rendered useless against the mechanical symphony. You reach your designated workstation. Perhaps it is a spinning mule, a vast, complex machine with hundreds of spindles that whir and spin, drawing out threads from raw cotton. Or maybe you tend a loom, its shuttle flying back and forth with ferocious speed, weaving cloth at an astonishing pace. Regardless of your specific task, the scene is one of relentless motion. Belts loop overhead, connecting shafts to machines, driving them forward. Gears grind, levers pull, and metal parts clash, all orchestrated into a relentless, productive ballet of industry. Your shift begins the moment you step into place. There is no easing into the work, no gentle transition. The machine demands your immediate, undivided attention. If you are tending a spinning mule, your eyes must constantly scan the hundreds of threads, watching for breaks. When a thread snaps, and they always do, you must quickly, deftly tie it back together. Your fingers, calloused as they are, become nimble, almost instinctively performing the delicate task amidst the thunderous din. The threads are fine, sometimes barely visible in the dim light, and the machine does not wait. If you are too slow, if too many threads break, the mule continues to spin, tangling the remaining fibers, creating waste, costing the master money. And costing you, perhaps, a reprimand or worse, a docked wage. If you are a weaver, your gaze is fixed on the loom, on the intricate dance of warp and weft. You must watch for imperfections, for snags in the yarn, for any fault in the rapidly forming cloth. The shuttle, a wooden bullet, flies across the loom at dizzying speeds. A moment's inattention, a lapse in concentration, and your hand could be caught, crushed, or torn by the unforgiving mechanism. You see the evidence of such accidents all around you, in the missing fingers of older workers, in the limping gait of others who fell victim to a slip or a moment of fatigue. The machines are not malicious, but they are utterly indifferent to human flesh and bone. The air is heavy, laden with fine dust, cotton fibers that float and settle on everything, including your lungs. You breathe it in with every gasping breath, a constant irritant that tickles your throat and settles deep within your chest. Your eyes sting from the dust and the poor light, strained by the constant focus required by your repetitive tasks. The noise is not just loud, it is a physical assault, a continuous hammering on your eardrums that leaves you feeling dazed and disoriented even when you step away. Hours blur into an indistinguishable stream. There are no clocks visible on the factory floor, only the relentless, rhythmic clatter of the machines dictating the passage of time. The foreman, a stern figure often wielding a stick or a harsh word, patrols the aisles, his eyes constantly searching for idleness, for inefficiency. His presence is a constant pressure, a reminder that you are always being watched, always expected to push harder, to work faster. A moment's rest is a moment wasted, a luxury you cannot afford. Your muscles ache, a deep, persistent throb from the repetitive motions, the constant standing, the bending, the reaching. Your back screams in protest, your legs feel like lead. Thirst becomes an almost unbearable distraction, but water is scarce, often dirty, and stopping for a drink means falling behind, risking the foreman's wrath. Hunger, too, is a constant companion, a dull ache that grows throughout the day, sharpening your awareness of your physical limits. Sometimes, for a brief, fleeting moment, the machines might stop. Perhaps for a repair, a change of shift, or a sudden malfunction. The abrupt silence is almost more shocking than the noise itself. You hear the gasps and coughs of your fellow workers, the creak of the floorboards, the distant rumble of carts outside. It is a moment of eerie, unsettling quiet before the mechanical beast roars back to life, swallowing all other sounds once more. You might have a short meal break, perhaps half an hour if you are lucky. You sit on a stool or a crate, right there on the factory floor, eating your meager rations amidst the grime and the noise. Your food, a piece of bread or a cold potato, tastes of the factory air, of oil and dust. There is no real rest, no true escape from the environment. Your mind, even if briefly distracted, remains tethered to the rhythmic demands, anticipating the moment you must return to the machine. Children, often as young as 7 or 8, work alongside the adults, their small hands nimble, their bodies small enough to navigate the dangerous spaces beneath and between the machinery. They run errands, scavenge fallen cotton, or perform delicate tasks that adults cannot manage. Their faces, like yours, are smudged with dirt and exhaustion, their youth stolen by the demands of the mill. You see yourself in them, a reflection of the cycle that begins so early and ends only with infirmity or death. The afternoon wears on, an endless stretch of repetitive motions, of sustained effort. Your thoughts become dull, your awareness narrowed to the immediate task. The world outside the factory walls, with its seasons and its shifting light, ceases to exist. There is only the here and now, the deafening roar, the spinning threads, the flying shuttle, the constant fear of a misstep, an accident, a moment of weakness. As the sun begins its slow descent, its light barely penetrating the grimy windows, a new kind of exhaustion sets in. Not just physical but mental, a profound weariness of the spirit. The monotony gnaws at you, the sheer, unrelenting sameness of it all. You are a component yourself, not merely operating a machine, but feeling like an extension of it, your will subsumed by its mechanical demands. Finally, after 12, 14, sometimes even 16 hours, the second whistle blows. This time it is not a summons but a release. The machines gradually slow, their roar subsiding into a mere hum, then a final, shuddering stop. The sudden quiet is almost disorienting, a shock to your overstimulated senses. You feel the tremor of the factory floor slowly subside, the air lose its intense vibration. Your body aches in places you did not know existed. Your eyes feel gritty, your ears ring from the ceaseless noise. You stumble away from your workstation, your movements stiff and clumsy, your mind clouded with exhaustion. You join the weary exodus, shuffling out through the gates, back into the emerging night or the lingering twilight. The fresh air, even with its taint of coal smoke, is a welcome shock. It tastes cleaner, crisper than the air inside. But the factory smells cling to your clothes, to your skin, to your hair. The noise echoes in your head, a phantom soundtrack that will accompany you home. You are free for a few precious hours, but you carry the factory within you, a burden of dirt, fatigue, and the grim knowledge that tomorrow the piercing whistle will sound again, and the cycle will begin anew. This is the rhythm of your life, the relentless, grinding cadence of the industrial age. The respite, though brief, vanishes with the piercing shriek of the factory whistle, a sound that rips through the dawn or the dusk, pulling you from a fitful sleep or a meager meal. You return to the gates, your muscles stiff, your mind still fighting the pull of oblivion. The cold, damp air of the early morning bites at your exposed skin, or the oppressive heat of midday presses down as you join the steady stream of bodies, all heading towards the looming brick structures. There is no joy in these steps, only resignation, a deep-seated knowing that the next 12, 14, or even 16 hours will be a relentless test of endurance, skill, and sheer will. You step back across the threshold, and the factory assaults your senses once more, a brutal symphony of industry. The air inside is thick, heavy with the cotton dust that floats like a perpetual snowfall, coating everything. The floor, the machines, your clothes, and most insidiously your lungs. If you work in a coal mine, the dust is black, gritty, suffocating. If it is a chemical plant, the air stings your eyes and burns your throat, leaving a metallic taste on your tongue. But here, in the textile mill, the fine fibers fill your nostrils, catching in your throat, making you cough, a dry, rasping sound that quickly becomes commonplace among the workers around you. The noise is a living entity, a deafening roar that never ceases. The clatter and bang of power looms, the rhythmic thud of steam engines, the incessant whirring and grinding of thousands of spinning spindles, the hiss and clank of massive gears turning, all combine into a cacophony that vibrates through the very bones in your skull. To speak, you must shout, pressing your face close to another's ear, but most often silence prevails, broken only by the mechanical clamor or the occasional shriek of an overseer. Your ears, once keen, now register a dull, persistent ringing, a permanent echo of the factory's power. Communication becomes a language of gestures, nods, and grimaces. The light is poor even at midday. Gas lamps flicker and hiss, casting a sickly yellow glow that mixes with the sparse natural light struggling through grimy windows. Shadows dance and stretch, distorting the shapes of the machines, making them appear even more monstrous and threatening. The air, already laden with dust and fibers, grows hotter still from the burning gas, and the ventilation, if it exists at all, is pitifully inadequate. In summer, the heat can be unbearable, stifling, with workers often fainting from exhaustion and dehydration. In winter, the cold bites, chilling you to the bone, your fingers numb and clumsy, making your delicate tasks even harder. You walk between rows of machinery, the narrow aisles barely wide enough for one body. The machines themselves are unprotected, their gears exposed, their belts whipping, their blades spinning with terrifying speed. There are no safety guards, no warning labels, no emergency stops easily accessible. The machine is king and you are its servant, expected to keep pace with its relentless demands. Your task is monotonous, repetitive, an endless cycle of precise, tiring movements. Perhaps you are a piecer, your small, nimble fingers expertly rejoining broken threads on a spinning machine. Or a doffer, quickly removing full bobbins and replacing them with empty ones, a race against the clock. Maybe you are tending a power loom, watching for snags, untangling knots, your eyes constantly scanning the threads, your hands flying to correct any fault. The work demands your absolute attention, a vigilance that falters only at your peril. One slip, one moment of inattention, one spasm of cramp in your tired hands, and disaster can strike. You have seen it happen. The stories are whispered, grim warnings shared in hushed tones over meager meals. A finger caught in the whirring gears, crushed beyond recognition. A hand mangled by a shuttle flying off a loom. An arm dragged into a powerful belt, ripped from its socket, leaving a bloody mess and a chilling scream that is quickly swallowed by the factory's roar. Legs broken, heads scalped by unguarded spindles, bodies dragged into the monstrous mechanisms. These are not rare occurrences, they are an ever-present threat, a lottery of injury that you play with every working minute. If you are fortunate enough to avoid immediate, catastrophic injury, the factory still exacts its toll. The constant standing or stooping leads to skeletal deformities, aching backs, swollen ankles. The fine dust you breathe day in and day out settles in your lungs, slowly suffocating you, leading to what the doctors call phthisis, or cotton lung, a slow, wasting death by consumption. The incessant noise erodes your hearing, leaving you profoundly deaf by middle age. Your eyesight, strained by the dim light and meticulous work, deteriorates rapidly. Your skin, constantly exposed to grime, oil, and sometimes harsh chemicals, becomes irritated, raw, and prone to infection. Child labor is not merely common, it is fundamental to the factory system. You see them everywhere, tiny figures weaving between the towering machines. Children as young as 5 or 6, sometimes even younger, employed to perform tasks too dangerous or too small for adults. Their small hands are perfect for reaching into the intricate workings of machinery to clear jams or retrieve dropped bobbins, often while the machines are still running. You watch them, these scavengers and piecers, moving with a preternatural speed and agility, oblivious to the constant peril. Their bodies are small, easily crushed. Their attention, though remarkable, can lapse with tragic consequences. You see their bowed legs, their stunted growth, their pallid faces, already etched with the weariness of adults. They are denied education, denied play, denied a childhood, their lives traded for a pittance that barely keeps their families from starvation. The rhythm of the factory is not just mechanical, it is also one of strict, unforgiving discipline. Overseers, often known for their brutality, patrol the aisles, their eyes sharp, their voices harsh. You are expected to work without pause, without complaint, without conversation. Lateness is met with a severe wage deduction or worse, a beating. Breaks are short, tightly regulated, and often unpaid. Talking or singing is forbidden. If a machine breaks down under your watch, even if it is not your fault, you may be fined or even dismissed. Every minute of your day is controlled, every movement monitored. You are a cog in a vast industrial machine, and any deviation from your prescribed function is met with swift, stern punishment. Your wages, though vital, are barely enough to survive on. They are often subject to arbitrary fines for minor infractions, or for the cost of broken equipment. Some factory owners operate a truck system, forcing you to buy overpriced goods from the company store, further trapping you in a cycle of debt and dependence. There is no job security, no sickness pay, no pension. One illness, one accident that renders you unable to work, and your meager income vanishes, plunging you and your family into destitution. At the end of your shift, when the whistle finally shrieks its release, you are not simply tired. You are drained, hollowed out. Your body aches with a profound weariness that sleep only partially alleviates. Your mind, though free from the immediate demands of the machine, continues to replay the day's operations, the deafening sounds, the constant vigilance. You stumble out into the street, your vision blurry, your senses dulled, joining the stream of silent, broken figures heading home. The factory has not just consumed your day, it has consumed your life. It shapes your body, scars your mind, dictates your every waking hour, and even permeates your dreams. It offers you a means to survive, but at an immense cost. This is the perilous existence, the brutal reality hidden beneath the spinning wheels and clattering looms, the price paid for the rapid advance of the industrial age. It is a life lived on the precipice, where every day is a battle against exhaustion, against danger, against the relentless, unforgiving pulse of the machine. And tomorrow the whistle will blow again. And tomorrow the whistle will blow again. But for whom does it blow loudest, most relentlessly? For whom does it steal not just the day but the very essence of existence, the promise of a future, the joy of a beginning? You imagine for a moment that you are not the adult worker hardened by years but a child. A small, frail body, awakened by that same piercing shriek, long before the sun dares to kiss the grimy horizon. You are roused not by a gentle hand, but by a rough shake, or the insistent clang of a communal alarm. Your bed, perhaps a straw pallet shared with several siblings, offers little warmth against the damp chill of the pre-dawn air. Your stomach gnaws with a familiar, empty ache. There is no time for childhood's sleepy lingering, no moment for dreams to fully unfurl. You pull on your meager clothes, worn and patched, still stiff with the sweat and dust of yesterday. The hurried gulp of thin gruel, if you are lucky enough to have it, provides scant energy for the ordeal ahead. Out you go into the narrow, gaslit streets, your small hand perhaps clutched by an older sibling, or walking alone, a solitary figure swallowed by the shadows. The cold seeps into your bones, the fog bites at your exposed skin. The air is thick with the promise of industry, a metallic tang mixed with the sour smell of unwashed humanity and coal smoke. Your breath plumes in front of you, a fleeting ghost in the gloom. You join a silent river of others, men, women, and countless children, all trudging towards the same behemoth. The factory gates loom, dark and foreboding, a maw ready to consume another day of your nascent life. Once inside, the transformation is immediate and absolute. The exterior world, with its meager light and quietude, vanishes. You are plunged into a maelstrom of noise, a symphony of relentless, mechanical fury. The colossal steam engine, the heart of this iron beast, thumps and hisses, its giant flywheel spinning with hypnotic, dangerous power. The air vibrates with the clatter of 1,000 looms, the whirring of countless spindles, the sharp crack of snapping threads. Your ears, small and unaccustomed, ache almost instantly. Communication is reduced to shouts, or the frantic gesturing of an overseer. You are small, yes. And that is your grim advantage, your curse. Your nimble fingers, your slender frame, are precisely what the factory master desires. You are a piecer, perhaps your task to mend the broken threads on the spinning machines. You stand for hours on end, hunched over the whirring mechanisms. Your eyes, strained by the dim, dust-filled light, must constantly scan the blur of cotton or wool. When a thread snaps, as it often does, you must dart in, your tiny fingers deftly knotting the broken ends together before the machine jams, before production falters. The danger is ever present, a silent partner to your ceaseless labor. The machinery is unfenced, unguarded, a ravenous monster of gears and belts. Your hair, if not tied back, could be caught. Your small fingers, moving with frantic speed, could be crushed, pulled in, mangled. You learn to move with a terrified agility, an instinctive dance around the hungry gears. One moment of fatigue, one flicker of a wandering mind, and a lifetime could be altered, a limb lost, a life extinguished. You witness it sometimes. A scream swallowed by the din, a splash of red against the dull gray of the machines, a silent, hasty removal of a less fortunate comrade. Or perhaps you are a scavenger, an even more perilous role. You must crawl beneath the whirring looms into the suffocating lint-filled space to collect the loose cotton and debris. The air down there is thick, choking, a snowstorm of fiber that fills your lungs with every shallow breath. The low-slung machinery scrapes your back, threatens to trap you. You emerge, coated in grime, coughing, your small body aching from the contorted posture, only to dive back in again. The threat of being entangled in the moving parts, caught by the shuttle of a loom, is a constant, icy prickle against your skin. You are literally a living tool, disposable and easily replaced. The heat is stifling, especially in the textile mills where humidity is deliberately maintained to prevent threads from breaking. The air is heavy, oppressive, laden with the smell of oil, sweat, and raw materials. Your throat is perpetually dry, your eyes burn from the dust and strain. The air itself feels abrasive, scraping at your lungs with every inhale. There are no cooling breaks, no fresh air to clear your head. Just the relentless, unchanging rhythm of the machines. Hours stretch into an eternity. 12 hours, 14 hours, sometimes even 16. The concept of time loses meaning, reduced to the steady, monotonous drone of the factory. You work from the gray of dawn until the black of night. There are no Sundays for rest, no holidays for celebration, only the rare, grudging half-day. Your tiny bladder aches, but toilet breaks are few and strictly monitored if permitted at all. Hunger pangs become a dull, persistent companion. Your feet, raw and blistered from standing, scream in protest. Your back aches, your neck stiffens, your small hands cramp from the repetitive, precise motions. Childhood, for you, is not a time of play and learning. The very notion of it seems a cruel jest. You do not chase butterflies in sun-dappled fields. You do not read stories by a flickering fire. You do not learn your letters, nor count numbers beyond those necessary for your meager wages. Your education is confined to the harsh realities of the factory floor, the unforgiving nature of the machine, the rigid hierarchy of power, the grim lessons of survival. Your toys are the bobbins you carry, the broken threads you mend, the dust you sweep. Your playground is the dangerous aisle between machines. Your overseer, a looming, often brutal figure, watches your every move. Fatigue is not an excuse. A momentary lapse in attention, a slowdown in your work, can be met with a sharp blow from a strap, a cuff to the ear, or a kick. You learn quickly the necessity of absolute obedience, of suppressing your natural childish impulses. Fear becomes a constant companion, a cold knot in your stomach. The threat of dismissal, of having even this brutal livelihood snatched away, hangs over you like a perpetual storm cloud. As the long day finally, mercifully draws to a close, you stagger out with the stream of other workers. The gaslights cast long, distorted shadows on the street. The night air, though cold, feels like a balm after the suffocating heat of the mill. But your mind is not free. The sounds of the factory continue to echo in your head, a phantom thrumming, a ghostly clatter. Your body is a vessel of profound exhaustion, every muscle screaming. Your eyes are heavy, your face smudged with grime and fatigue, a miniature reflection of the adults around you. You arrive home to a meager meal, if any, and the shared space of a crowded tenement. There is no time for conversation, no energy for affection. Sleep comes quickly, a dark, heavy blanket that provides little true rest, for even in slumber, the sounds of the factory often persist, haunting your dreams. Your body, still developing, begins to show the indelible marks of its daily torment. Bowed legs from hours of standing, a stoop in your shoulders, fingers calloused or scarred, eyes perpetually red and watery. Your growth is stunted, your constitution weakened. The very promise of a healthy adulthood is stolen before it can even truly begin. This is the life of the child worker, a tiny cog in the giant, grinding machine of industrial progress. Your innocence, your potential, your very childhood, sacrificed on the altar of production. You are not a child in the traditional sense, but a miniature adult, burdened with responsibilities far beyond your years. The world around you rushes forward, fueled by the toil of countless small hands like yours, building an empire on the ashes of stolen youth. And tomorrow that piercing whistle will blow again, demanding another day, another piece of your precious, irretrievable childhood. That piercing whistle may signal the start of your shift, but it also heralds the beginning of an insidious, invisible war. It is a battle fought not with fists, but with fear, with rules, and with the constant, crushing weight of authority. You are not simply a worker here, you are a resource to be managed, a body to be controlled, a will to be bent. And the architect of this control is the overseer. He is the true warden of this industrial prison, a figure whose presence looms larger than any machine. You feel his eyes on you always. A flicker of movement at the edge of your vision, a shadow passing by, the sudden silence of other workers. He is there, patrolling the narrow aisles, his heavy boots echoing on the grimy floorboards, each step a reminder of his power. He is the ultimate enforcer of the factory's unwritten laws, and his gaze is a weapon, sharper than any knife, more potent than any club. His word is law. A cough at the wrong moment, a glance out the window at the fleeting sky, a whispered word to a fellow worker, a moment's hesitation in your task. Each is a potential infraction, a direct challenge to the rigid order of the factory floor. For these perceived transgressions, the overseer has a repertoire of punishments at his disposal. For the men and women, it is often a verbal lashing, a public humiliation that strips away your dignity before your peers. For the children like yourself, the discipline can be far more brutal. You have seen it, felt it. The crack of a strap against skin, the sting of a cuff across the ear, the sharp, deliberate kick that sends a small body sprawling. Perhaps you have been forced to stand for hours in a corner, facing the wall, as the relentless machinery grinds on around you, a living statue of shame. Or maybe it was a bucket of cold water thrown over you, shocking your senses, an icy rebuke for a momentary lapse in concentration. These aren't just punishments. They are lessons etched into your memory, designed to break your spirit and ensure absolute, unthinking obedience. Beyond the physical pain, there is the insidious threat of the fine. Every mistake, every second of lateness, every piece of work deemed unsatisfactory, can result in a deduction from your already meager wage. The rules are often arbitrary, the judgments swift and unforgiving. You might find a shilling or even more simply vanish from your pay packet at the end of the week, for reasons that seem unfair or even fabricated. This system of fines creates a constant anxiety, a fear that even your hardest work might not be enough to earn what you desperately need. It is a deliberate tactic designed to keep you perpetually on edge, to ensure you internalize the factory's rhythm, its demands, its unwavering control. And then there is the debt. The factory, in its calculated generosity, offers solutions to your mounting problems. Perhaps you are compelled to rent a tiny, overcrowded room in a company-owned tenement, the rent for which is automatically deducted from your wages. Or you might be encouraged, even pressured, to purchase your essential goods from the company store. This is the truck system, and it is a trap. The prices at the company store are often inflated, far higher than those at independent shops, yet you have little choice. Your wages, diminished by fines and rent, are paid out in tokens or credit valid only at the company establishment. You are paid, effectively, with the very means of your own further impoverishment. You start the week with barely enough, and by the time deductions are made, you find yourself perpetually behind, perpetually owing. A loan for a new pair of worn-out boots, credit for a sack of flour to feed your hungry family. Each transaction ties you more tightly to the factory, transforming your employment into a form of indentured servitude. You are no longer just a worker. You are a debtor tethered to the system, unable to leave, unable to complain for fear of losing everything. Your labor is not truly your own. It is mortgaged to the factory owner, collateral for a debt you can never seem to repay. This cycle of discipline, fines, and debt inexorably leads to a deep and pervasive sense of degradation. You are stripped of your autonomy, your sense of self-worth systematically eroded. You are not a skilled artisan creating with pride. You are an interchangeable unit, easily replaced by another desperate soul. Your intelligence, your dreams, your very humanity are irrelevant. All that matters is your capacity to perform the repetitive task assigned to you, day in and day out, without question, without complaint. The constant surveillance, the arbitrary punishments, the endless financial struggle, they all combine to crush your spirit. You learn to suppress your emotions, to hide your fatigue, to muzzle your discontent. The factory becomes a place where individuality is stifled, where the human element is systematically suppressed in favor of raw production. You begin to see yourself as the factory sees you, a machine part, a cog, a number. You witness your fellow workers, men and women broken by the unrelenting pressure, their eyes hollow, their movements slow and heavy. You see the children, once bright-eyed and full of life, now prematurely aged, their laughter replaced by a quiet, watchful fear. This is the toll of the overseer's gaze, the crushing weight of debt, the relentless march of degradation. It is a systematic process of dehumanization, designed to extract every last ounce of labor from your body and soul, leaving you with little more than the bare bones of your existence. And as the whistle screams the end of another day, you walk out into the soot-filled twilight, carrying not just the ache of your muscles, but the heavier burden of a spirit diminished, a life increasingly defined by the chains of the factory. As the factory floor stretches endlessly before you, a vast panorama of churning gears and whirring spindles, you begin to discern the distinct rhythm of women's labor. Their presence here is not accidental. It is a calculated thread in the intricate weave of industrialization, a testament to both opportunity and exploitation. You see them row after row, their figures silhouetted against the dusty light, their hands a blur of motion over the machines. You realize that for many of these women, the factory is not a choice made lightly. It is a desperate necessity, a path forged by the harsh realities of a changing world. Perhaps you are a young woman from a struggling farm, sent here to earn money to support your family, to pay off debts, or to secure a dowry that might otherwise be impossible. Perhaps you are an unmarried woman with few other options for independence, or a widow, suddenly thrust into the role of sole provider. The reasons are varied, but the underlying current is always the same: economic survival. You step closer, observing the tasks assigned primarily to women. You might find yourself tending to the spinning frames, where raw cotton is twisted into thread, or operating the power looms, which weave that thread into fabric. The work is intricate, demanding a keen eye and nimble fingers. Your hands, if you were one of them, would be in constant motion, tying broken threads, monitoring the flow of material, repairing minor malfunctions. The air around you is thick with lint, a fine white dust that settles on everything. Your hair, your clothes, the very air you breathe. It coats your throat, tickles your nose, and slowly, insidiously works its way into your lungs. The noise here is deafening, a relentless assault on your ears. The clatter of the looms, the whir of the spindles, the rhythmic thud of the machinery combine into a single, overwhelming roar that makes conversation impossible without shouting directly into an ear. You learn to read lips, to communicate through gestures, to understand the subtle shifts in the machinery's groan that signal a problem. Your head aches, a dull, persistent throb that starts the moment the whistle screams you into the factory and only truly dissipates hours after you leave. The hours are long, brutally so. From dawn until dusk, sometimes even longer during peak production periods. You stand for most of the day, your feet swelling, your back aching, your muscles screaming for rest. There are no chairs, no moments of true repose. Even your brief meal breaks are often spent within the factory walls, eating a simple, often cold, meal while the machines cool, only to roar back to life moments later. You notice the hierarchy even among the women. Younger, unmarried women often work in different sections than older, sometimes married, women or those with children. The factory management, ever calculating, exploits perceived differences in strength, dexterity, and even perceived docility. Women are often paid significantly less than men for comparable work, justified by the notion that they are not the primary breadwinners, or that their labor is inherently less valuable. You feel the sting of this injustice, even if you do not yet have the language to articulate it. For many young women, especially those from rural areas, working in the factory also meant a profound shift in living arrangements. You might live in a company-owned boarding house, sharing a small room with several other women. These houses are often overseen by a strict matron, who enforces curfews and moral codes designed to protect the factory's reputation and, by extension, its workforce. While these rules can feel stifling, the boarding house also creates a unique sense of community. You eat together, sleep together, share your stories and your fears. In the evenings, after the grueling day, you might gather in a common room, sharing letters from home, mending clothes, or perhaps even attempting to read by the dim light of a single lamp. It is in these moments, away from the relentless demands of the machinery, that you begin to witness the threads of resilience. You see women sharing precious scraps of food, mending each other's torn dresses, offering comfort to a friend who has received bad news from home. You hear whispered conversations about the injustices of their wages, the unbearable noise, the harshness of an overseer. This shared experience, this communal suffering, forges an unbreakable bond between you and your fellow workers. You see how some women, despite their exhaustion, seek out education. They might pool their meager resources to buy a newspaper or a book, taking turns reading aloud, discussing ideas late into the night. They form improvement circles, striving to better themselves, to cultivate their minds even as their bodies are pushed to the limit. They write letters, sometimes even poetry, giving voice to their experiences, their hopes, and their frustrations. These are small acts of defiance, tiny sparks against the vast darkness of their toil, but they are powerful nonetheless. You also observe the subtle ways women resist the dehumanizing grind. A moment of shared laughter over a supervisor's absurdity. A surreptitious exchange of glances that conveys solidarity. A quiet refusal to work beyond a certain point, even when threatened. These are not grand gestures of rebellion, but everyday acts of maintaining one's spirit, of asserting one's humanity in a system designed to strip it away. Sometimes, however, the quiet whispers coalesce into a louder voice. You might witness a moment of collective action. When wages are cut or conditions worsen beyond endurance, you see the women organize. They might walk out of the factory, a synchronized exodus that temporarily silences the roar of the machines. You hear their voices, for once not drowned out by industry, rising in protest, demanding fair treatment, decent pay. These are frightening moments, filled with the risk of job loss, blacklisting, and even physical intimidation. Yet, fueled by desperation and a shared sense of injustice, they stand together, a nascent force for change. You feel a surge of pride, a recognition of their immense courage, knowing that even in this oppressive environment, the human spirit, especially the spirit of these women, finds ways to push back, to create community, to dream of a better future. As another day draws to a close and the air cools slightly, you walk out of the factory with the other women. Their faces are smudged with dirt, their hair escaping from under their caps, their shoulders slumped with fatigue. But as they chat and laugh quietly on the walk back to the boarding house, you notice something else. A spark in their eyes, a shared understanding, a quiet strength that persists despite everything. You understand now that while the factory sought to break them, to reduce them to cogs in a machine, these women, through their resilience, their community, and their unwavering spirit, found ways to reclaim their humanity, one thread at a time. You step out of the factory, the din still echoing in your ears, the dust clinging to your clothes. The shared understanding you feel with the women around you is more than just camaraderie, it is a quiet, potent energy. This bond, forged in the relentless rhythm of the machines and the harsh demands of the overseers, begins to transform. It shifts from mere survival to something more profound. A nascent, collective will to resist, to demand better, to whisper, then to shout for change. The seeds of this resistance are often planted in the most unassuming places. They sprout in the hushed conversations at the boarding house dinner table, where grievances are shared and solutions, however improbable, are pondered. They grow in the hurried exchanges during the brief lunch break, where stories of unfair deductions or unreasonable quotas are exchanged, fueling a slow burn of indignation. You notice how a sudden slowdown in production, seemingly accidental, can ripple through a room, a silent, synchronized protest. A dropped tool, a deliberately tangled thread that takes precious minutes to untangle, a subtle misunderstanding of an order. These small acts of defiance are not always organized, but they are understood. They are tiny fissures in the unyielding rock of industrial control, gestures of human agency in a system designed to suppress it. Imagine a Tuesday morning. The air is thick with cotton dust, the humid heat oppressive. The factory bell, a harsh clangor, rings out, signaling the start of another grueling 13-hour shift. But this morning, a subtle ripple moves through the room. A group of women, their faces usually set in determined submission, pause. You see it in their eyes, a shared glance, a flicker of understanding. They do not immediately resume their tasks. The overseer barks an order, his voice sharp and impatient. One woman, her hands usually flying across the loom, slowly, deliberately straightens her back. Others follow suit. It is not a strike, not yet. It is a moment of collective hesitation, a silent question posed to the very air of the factory. Why? This question, unvoiced but deeply felt, is the first tremor of a coming earthquake. These moments of shared frustration and quiet defiance begin to coalesce. The informal networks among the women, built on friendship and shared hardship, become vital conduits for organizing. The boarding houses, which owners established to control their workers, inadvertently become centers of burgeoning activism. Here, away from the watchful eyes of the overseers, conversations turn more serious. You listen as women speak of the need for shorter hours, for better pay, for an end to the brutal pace that leaves them exhausted and unwell. They discuss the danger of the machines, the prevalence of accidents, the lack of safety. Their words are not just complaints. They are demands, articulated with growing clarity and conviction. The earliest forms of collective action are often petitions. You might be asked to add your name, perhaps even your mark if you cannot write, to a document listing grievances. These petitions are carefully worded, respectful in tone, addressed to the factory owners or even to the state legislature. They appeal to reason, to morality, to the idea of fair play. They outline the hardship of long hours and meager wages, the struggle to simply survive. Signing such a document is a bold act, carrying the risk of dismissal, blacklisting, or worse. Yet women sign. They do so because the alternative, endless, silent suffering, has become unbearable. They do so because they are beginning to understand that their individual voices are easily ignored, but their collective voice, even on paper, carries weight. As conditions fail to improve, and petitions are often dismissed or ignored, the whispers grow louder. The idea of a turnout, what we would now call a strike, begins to take hold. Imagine the sheer terror and exhilaration of such a decision. To walk out, to refuse to work, means sacrificing your meager wages, risking your home in the boarding house, and facing the wrath of powerful factory owners. Yet, in various mills across New England and beyond, women workers begin to do precisely that. You are there when the call is made. Perhaps it is a Sunday evening meeting in a hushed parlor, or a quick, urgent word passed from loom to loom. The decision is made to turn out the following morning. The air is electric with a mixture of fear and determination. As the factory bell rings the next day, not for work, but for a new kind of assembly, you join the stream of women walking out. Their heads are held high, their steps resolute. The overseers shout, threaten, cajole. But the women keep walking. They march through the streets, sometimes singing songs, sometimes carrying banners, their numbers swelling with each passing moment. They are a spectacle, a shocking display of female defiance in an age that expects quiet obedience. These early strikes are often spontaneous, driven by a specific wage cut, an extension of hours, or the dismissal of a respected worker. They are not always successful in their immediate demands. Owners often have ample reserves of labor, especially desperate immigrants willing to work for even less. They can afford to wait the workers out to hire strike breakers. They can evict striking women from boarding houses, forcing them into destitution. Newspapers often condemn the striking women, portraying them as unruly, unladylike, and ungrateful. You read the headlines: female operatives abandon their posts. Disturbances in the mills. Yet, despite the formidable opposition, the strikes serve a vital purpose. They demonstrate the power of collective action. They force the public to confront the harsh realities of factory life. They create a precedent, a memory of resistance that fuels future movements. The women learn quickly. They realize that isolated strikes are vulnerable. They begin to form more structured associations. You see notices for meetings of female labor reform associations or factory girls associations. These are not unions in the modern, heavily organized sense, but they are crucial precursors. They establish committees, draft constitutions, collect dues, and publish their own newspapers or pamphlets to advocate for their cause. Through these publications, they articulate their grievances, share stories of struggle, and appeal for broader public support. They frame their demands not just in economic terms, but also in moral and social terms, speaking of the dignity of labor, the right to an education, and the preservation of republican values against the encroaching tyranny of industrial capitalism. The struggle is long and arduous. Victories are often small, hard-won, and temporary. But the relentless pressure begins to yield results. Public awareness grows. Reformers, sympathetic journalists, and even some politicians begin to take notice. The arguments for shorter working days, for example, once dismissed as radical, slowly gain traction. Legislative bodies begin to consider laws to limit child labor, to improve safety, and eventually, though much later, to establish maximum working hours. You witness the profound impact of these early acts of resistance. You see how the courage of these women, their refusal to be mere cogs in a machine, fundamentally alters the landscape of labor in America. Their actions lay the groundwork for the labor movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, for the fight for an 8-hour day, for the establishment of workers' rights, for the very concept of a minimum wage. As you stand amidst the echoes of these struggles, you understand that the industrial world you have experienced, though brutal, was also a crucible of change. It was a place where ordinary people, facing extraordinary exploitation, discovered their collective power. The human spirit, resilient and unyielding, refused to be confined by factory walls or silenced by the roar of machinery. It found its voice in whispers, in protests, in the brave, defiant steps of women walking out, demanding not just a living wage but a life of dignity. Their legacy is not just in the laws that eventually passed, but in the enduring belief that every worker deserves respect, every voice deserves to be heard, and that even in the face of immense power, the seeds of resistance, once planted, can grow into a forest of change. You carry that understanding with you, knowing that the struggles of the past continue to shape the world you inhabit today, a testament to those who dared to whisper, then to shout for a better future.